Welcome to the Daily AI News Digest Explainer. This broadcast is sponsored by bestai.org. I'm your host, and for Monday, June 22nd, 2026, we are bypassing the usual market hype to examine the actual data driving enterprise AI decisions today. Let's look at today's market realities. Here is your headline overview. Today, we're tracking SpaceX's $60 billion acquisition of Cursor, a rather blunt antitrust warning from Microsoft CEO, and the ongoing global regulatory shutdown of Anthropic's latest models. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. Biggest market moves today. Consolidation and warnings.
The financial landscape for AI infrastructure is currently seeing unprecedented capital concentration, and the headline figure today is exactly $60 billion. That is the valuation of an all-stock acquisition by SpaceX for Anisphere, which is the parent company of the AI coding startup Cursor. Just to put the timing of this into perspective, this deal was finalized a mere 4 days after SpaceX closed the largest IPO in history. Right now, Cursor has roughly 4 million active developer users, and they're generating about 150 million lines of enterprise code every single day. When we break down the mechanics of this deal, SpaceX is essentially paying a 15x multiple on Cursor's estimated $4 billion in annual recurring revenue. The strategic rationale for SpaceX is twofold here. First, it feeds their XAI division a continuous stream of real-world coding data to train their Grok models, and in return, Cursor gets access to the massive XAI Colossus compute cluster. But the broader market reaction is definitely mixed. After an initial surge, Morningstar actually cut its fair value estimate for SpaceX to $62. They're citing specific risk ahead of a major float unlock window that opens up between late July and August. Now, this kind of rapid consolidation isn't going unnoticed. Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella stated today that the industry, quote, can't let AI giants eat the economy. It's a blistering critique of the current power balance, and it signals some serious industry internal concerns regarding antitrust and economic stability. It is really a stark juxtaposition to the broader market euphoria right now, especially considering Japan's Nikkei hit a historic 72,000 today, while the Nasdaq 100 continues onboarding new AI hardware firms. Section 2. Regulation and Business Signals. The Single Vendor Risk. Nadella's antitrust warning actually aligns with an immediate operational crisis happening in the enterprise sector right now, specifically the vulnerability of centralized infrastructure. Let's look at the timeline of the current regulatory reality. On June 12th, Anthropic launched Fable 5 and Mythos 5. But on that exact same day, the U.S. Bureau of Industry and Security issued an IS-informed letter. This effectively halted the deployment due to export control concerns. Fast forward to today, June 22nd, and those models still remain offline globally. For enterprise buyers, this Anthropic shutdown is a massive forcing function. The risk of relying on a single vendor monolith is no longer theoretical. It's a quantifiable liability. If your infrastructure depends entirely on one provider, a regulatory pause like this turns into a complete operational outage. Because of this, we're seeing an accelerated pivot away from single model loyalty. The market is moving toward multi-agent orchestration, systems that dynamically route tasks to available providers, which directly mitigates the risk of any single lab going offline. Section 3. Product and Model Realities. The shift to orchestration. The engineering response to this vendor risk is already showing up in today's product launches. We're observing a hard structural shift from raw parameter scaling to intelligent orchestration. The technical highlight today is the commercial beta launch of Sakana Fugu from Tokyo-based Sakana AI. Now, Fugu isn't a traditional monolithic model. You can think of it more like a smart router. It acts as a single API, but behind the scenes, it automatically assembles and dispatches tasks to a swappable pool of expert models, like GPT-5.5, Claude, and Gemini. If one provider is restricted, Fugu simply routes the workload somewhere else. Looking at the tiers, Fugu comes in two distinct variants. Fugu Mini is optimized for low latency in everyday applications, on a pay-as-you-go basis. Fugu Ultra is built for complex, multi-step enterprise problems. The critical mechanic driving this is what the industry calls test time scaling. Basically, the system recursively calls itself to refine its coordination strategy, applying more compute during the actual inference phase rather than relying entirely on pre-training. It's a very practical implementation of collective intelligence. Concurrently, Microsoft is taking a slightly different route with its newly launched MAI Thinking 1 model. Looking at the hard specs, it's a sparse mixture of experts architecture utilizing 35 billion active parameters with a 256,000 token context window, which is about a quarter of what Claude Opus 4.8 offers. However, its reasoning performance remains highly competitive. It secured a 97% on the AMA 2025 math benchmark and a 52.8% on the SWE Bench Pro coding evaluation. But the real differentiator for MAI Thinking One isn't its raw capability, it's the data provenance. Microsoft is explicitly stating this model was trained from scratch with zero third-party distillation using exclusively commercially licensed data. So they aren't trying to win the ultimate benchmark war here. Instead, they're competing directly on operational efficiency and strict enterprise IP security, addressing the precise procurement bottlenecks of large-scale institutions.
Shifting over to the open source research frontier, the RUC NLPIR lab just released Arbor. Arbor is an autonomous research agent framework designed for autonomous optimization. Unlike standard coding agents that try to solve a problem in a single pass, Arbor treats research as a long-horizon cumulative search process using a method called hypothesis tree refinement.
Let's break down the operational mechanics. Arbor separates the workload entirely. You have a long-lived coordinator agent that manages the global strategy, while short-lived executor agents run specific tests in isolated Git work trees. The whole system operates on a strict 6-step cycle, from observation, ideation, selection, dispatch, backpropagation, and finally deciding. This rigorous discipline forces the system to preserve a durable memory. It knows exactly what it tried, what failed, and which branch warrants further compute, effectively preventing the agent from forgetting past errors.
And the result of that structured discipline is evident in the data. Running on a GPT-5.5 backbone, Arbor hit an 86.36% any metal rate on the MLE Bench Lite evaluation. More importantly, it had a 100% valid submission rate with over 77% securing gold medals. These figures confirm that applying rigorous, tree-based experiment management produces highly reliable outputs, moving us from simple chat interfaces to verifiable, automated scientific research.
Section 4. The Analyst's Take. Why this matters now. So what is the cold business reality underlying these disparate developments? Let's synthesize the signals. First, monolithic model scaling is clearly yielding to agentic orchestration. The future relies on swappable model pools, not single oracles. Second, as the Anthropic shutdown proves, single vendor reliance is now an unacceptable enterprise liability. Redundancy is absolutely mandatory. And third, that $60 billion Cursor acquisition shows us that AI developer toolchains are no longer just productivity software. They are mega-cap strategic assets driving the next wave of corporate capital allocation. Looking at the calendar for the rest of the week, institutional investors are locking onto the upcoming Micron earnings report. That's going to be our next definitive data-backed signal for gauging the actual health of this ongoing AI hardware and compute cycle. We'll have a full breakdown of those numbers once they cross the wire. That concludes today's Daily AI News Digest Explainer. Thank you for tuning in, and a special thanks to our sponsor, bestai.org. As we watch these dynamic, multi-agent systems rise up to replace vulnerable monoliths, it leaves us with a critical question. In a future where AI can instantly and automatically route workloads around local restrictions, how will governments actually enforce their regulations? Keep that in mind as you navigate the market this week. We'll see you tomorrow.